Alrighty, we managed to do it. Okay. Whew. Waha. Let's tell everyone. Big round of applause. Big round of applause to Andre, please, who helped me fix it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, let's copy this. Let's copy it here. And I hope it's a go. Okay, you're here. Sounds good, looks good. Now I'll just have to find my script and off we go. Hello everyone. Thank you for coming and thank you for your patience. Windows is the worst. It just is. Alright. Today we'll take a look at Kadish. And this presentation will come in two parts. In the first, I'll summarize what we know about him, what Isha and the DRC tell us. And the second part will be a speculative analysis of his ages and what they show us about him rather than tell. This part will take place in the Kadish Gallery in the Canyon Mall. Just so you know, this entire presentation will be a massive story spoiler. So, if you haven't finished the hand towel and the shell parts of Euro, please consider yourself warned. There will be very minor puzzle spoilers for Ahnone and Kadish Talisa, one each. Very, very minor spoilers. I hope the sound is okay. Well, I suppose you would have already told me if it wasn't. So why Kadish? We never see him, we never interact with him, and no, trying to play ball with his skull does not count. We don't even really know what he looked like, but he certainly can be called one of the central characters of Uru. He's essentially a ghost in a narrative. If you want to read the one thing written with his own hands, you have to learn Dani, or look up a translation, and even that translation has question marks beside about 1/3 of the words because their meaning isn't verified, and only there because of context clues. Everything else comes from third parties, the DRC and Yisha. And fan theories abound. He's dead, he's alive, he was Evil Book who killed Yisha's mentor Kalam. Ask me about that one later if you like. But the truth is, we just don't know, because there's very little about him that can be called canon fact. Just lots of lore supplied by what are possibly unreliable narrators. His end is just as mysterious as his life. And should he still be around, nabbed from his own timeline by Yisha, it would make him the last surviving Dani master of the art. The fall of Dani occurred about 300 years ago, which is the average lifespan of a Dani. So even if a master survived the fall somewhere and somehow made it to relation, they're dead now. So, who was Kadish? And who might he have been? Before we get into things, I'd like to throw a few definitions at you that are relevant to this presentation and should facilitate the nerd out afterwards. The usual Doylist, Watsonian stuff applies. Doylist means to look at something from an out-of-universe point of view. That's what we're doing here in Kirel. Watsonian, on the other hand, means an inner-universe perspective. That will happen in the Kadish gallery. Example, the death of Keta. The Doylist point of view would be she's a throwaway character who is only in the narrative to give birth to Atris. The Watsonian explanation, on the other hand, is that she dies because she's very ill and Anna can't save her. And these two perspectives must always be kept separate. To try and refute Keta is a fridge character with, but she was very ill, isn't a valid statement, because the agency of the author always trumps the agency of the character, because the author is in complete control of the narrative, and every story beat represents a conscious choice. The next term I'd like to talk about is lore. Lore is what you learn about the game world within the game. There's also meta lore, and example for that would be that the song playing in the gallery was performed by Kadish's wife, who then died alone. But we only know that because the composer said that this is what he was imagining when he wrote the track. But there is nothing in the game or in the official materials that suggests that Kadish even was married. So those are tidbits mentioned by creators outside the context of the game. For example, in interviews or Q&As and the like. For this presentation, I chose not to acknowledge any meta lore or anything that isn't in any of sorry, or that isn't in any of the official releases. So we'll have the games, the novels, and the official DRC website. Next one is canon. Canon, that's the established facts about the in-game universe, the stuff that's set in stone. Not to be confused with lore. Lore can be factually wrong, especially if the unreliable narrator trope is in play and things you find or what characters tell you can be false. Either because they're mistaken, or operating with limited knowledge, or because they're outright lying. For example, you can't link to an age from within the age. That's a piece of law. The Denis sincerely believed that, but it was proven wrong. You can do it anytime you want, in your own Relto. Another piece of law is the whole borrow thing. Like, we're told they were enslaved, we're told they were freed, but if and how it all happened, that's still highly controversial. And I think that's deliberate. So at least some of what we've got here is law, not necessarily canon. The next term is interpretation. An interpretation is when you look at a piece of law and start to form your own thoughts about the game world or narrative based on that. Interpretations may vary widely, but what they all have in common is that they must be based on in-game evidence, or meta-lore at the very least. They can only be refuted by canon evidence, not by other lore, and therefore you can absolutely disagree with a read while still accepting it as valid. A headcanon, on the other hand, is something you personally believe about a fictional world or a character that is not based on either canon or lore and just mirrors your own preferences. For example, Yisha has a cat. There is no evidence for that anywhere. It's just an idea that I like. And you may say, I think she's more of a dog person actually. But neither of our headcanons is more valid than the other, and we never have the right to impose that on other people. Similarly to the Doylist and Watsonian stuff above, interpretations and headcanons should not be mixed. Okay, all clarity dispelled? Yes, everyone sufficiently confused? Let's get to Kadish. So, what do we know about Guildmaster Kadish? We don't really know when exactly he was born or anything about his family, but I think since he entered the Guild of Writers, that it must have been a prominent one. As per Book of Tiana, the common practice was to give boys to a guild at age 4. So basically, your family decides on the course your life takes, and there was zero self-determination. It also meant that the membership with the great guilds was kept within a few upper-class families. Kadish eventually attained the rank of master, but never rose above mediocrity, either because his true passion and talent lay with engineering or because he was a bit of a rebel. We'll get to that. After some kind of incident, he was kicked out of the guild and opened a gallery where he sold art to the upper class. That was so successful that he ended up being one of the wealthiest people in Denis, and he later bought the Watchers pub and refurbished it to his specifications. And this is when he starts his grower project and chose specific parts of the prophecy to emulate. A grower to move through time, a grower to banish the darkness, and a grower to follow the shell. His claims got a lot of attention among the ruling class especially, but his plans were cut short by the fall of Denis. He fled to his vault age, Kadish to Lisa, where he died alone, leaving a note that he died surrounded with what was most precious to him, mentioning books. Plural. We'll get to that later too. And that is the bare bones of what we learn about him in the game. But wouldn't it be more fun to dig into other things and speculate from there? Well, I certainly think so, and I hope so do you. So let's do that. Let's do some art analysis. Let's totally overthink things. And now we'll be moving to the Kadish Gallery. You can either go to the concert hall via the Nexus, or you can type to concert at Mirobot. Once you arrive, turn right and down the stairs and you'll easily find the gallery from there. Just in case we've got some newbies among us. Okay, see you there. I'll type it in the chat so everyone knows. I'll just take the Nexus from my router because that's the easiest way. Hello, my name is Ali. Welcome to my crib. Oop. The Nexus, what a nifty bit of technology. So, choop. Doop-a-doop-a-doop. Here we go. Oh, oh god, now that is one eldritch abomination. Stampede! Okay, enough with the corny jokes, Oli. This is serious business. Oh god, I'm having lags. Come on, open the bloody thing, yes. Okay, I suggest you go to your settings and turn down the music a bit. I really, really love that track, but right now I don't think we really need it. Alrighty. Is there still people arriving, or are we all here? Song sounds good on double the speed. I think it's fine just the way it is. Sometimes I just come here to listen to it. Okay. There's still people arriving. Yep. And another one. That worked reasonably well. Okay. That's good to know for future things. If there are future things. I might just run out of things to talk about. Murray, I played in Maralto a lot. Yes, so do I. But I've also got birds squeaking around in Maralto, so that's... those two things do not go together very well. But I also like my birdies, so... Well, hello up there. Okay. Is that everyone? I hope so. I hope it is everyone. So, the speculative part of my presentation is divided into the ages he wrote and the places he influenced. We'll look at each one and we'll see what their design can tell us about what kind of person he was. This, as I said before, is an entirely Watsonian endeavor, meaning the analysis will be entirely from an in-universe perspective, and it's not meant to be taken entirely seriously. This is just me sharing my brain weasels. Alright, the first stage I'd like to talk about is Ahnone. Let's do the time warp again. Kadish was not only a brilliant writer, we'll get to that in a minute, I'll tell you why I don't think he was mediocre, but also an excellent engineer, and it really shows in the Age of Ahnone. As you all know, it's comprised of 4 spherical builds that rotate in, so it gives you the illusion of time travel. There, that's the spoiler. There's 4 spheres, not 3. The 4th sphere is still under construction, and I gotta say, I keep wondering who exactly did all of the building. Surely that kind of work can't be done by one man alone. Who were his helpers? I think we can rule out the borrow. Kadish was no longer a member of the Great Guild, and had no access to the golden tablet used to control them, if he ever even knew about the tablet in the first place. Kalam sure didn't, and he was of the same rank. So, who else was in on it? Who would he trust with that kind of secret? It's impossible to keep a secret like this forever, and no matter how many NDAs you make people sign. So perhaps, and this is just my theory, mind you, he never meant for it to remain a secret for long. As impressive as the construction is, it seems a bit ramshackle, especially if you compare the elaborate, sturdy design of the machine to the flimsy theatre backdrops inside the spheres themselves. To me, this smells like a short-term deception, not a long-term one. Besides the design, who would believe that this was actually Gadernay? Where is the evidence that the Rhone ever lived here? The statue in the unfinished portion of the machine tells us that Kadish certainly had a high opinion of himself. You don't make humongous statues of your own person if you don't have a certain amount of arrogance. It's also the first thing that he finished, before anything else. The statue is the only thing in that sphere that's actually complete. So it follows that it's the most important thing to him here. The statue also tells us that he probably wasn't all that old. Apparently, aging Denis liked to wear beards, and the statue doesn't have it, and there's no signs of age in the statue's face. So my personal guess is that he was born about 100 to 150 years before the fall. Last piece of evidence that speaks for the Denis version of Punkt. Ahnone is a Taurus age. The only other writer that we know of who ever pulled off a functional one was Katran. This certainly reads like a how many fudge yous can I squeeze into one age to me. So, what led him to do this? Where does this obvious contempt for the Denis way of doing things come from? Age Arcana. Rage against the machine. Arcana is a food age Kadish probably wrote for the Guild of Caterers and repurposed. It shows us what his work life would have been like. Your basic, unfulfilling mid-management desk job, writing boring ages for resources. No wonder he wasn't content. He was stuck creating products to specification, not, well, art. Where Ahnone is wild and imaginative, Arcana is dry in every sense, and utilitarian. But there is a stark beauty in the landscape and hidden pockets of lovely plant life. Thank you, Mola, for letting me take those home. I love them. In contrast, the machine is just plain ugly. There is no love in the design, only function. I can't help but think it's an unconscious depiction of his own life as a guild writer. Churn out what is needed, don't question, don't think. The machine is alien in the canyons of Arcana, a depiction of Kadish's own alienation from his work. You gotta remember that he was probably still pretty young as Denis went. He was in the equivalent of his 30s or 40s when he died. So, what we've got here is the equivalent of a 20 or 30 something who is bored and frustrated having to listen to old farts telling him what to do. No matter how good you were, the Denis didn't listen to people who hadn't reached the 200-year mark yet. That's when you were seen as a proper mature adult. So if you were a young progressive, you were out of luck. Atreus the Elder had the same problem in the Book of Tiana. I don't think Kadish had it in him to create something completely devoid of beauty. He obviously had strong aesthetic sensibilities, why else create and run a place like the gallery? But if you walk through Arcana, you can just about see him chafe. Compare it to the lush environment of Tolesa and you can see where his heart truly lies. Kadish Tolesa, happy little trees. It's my favorite age in all of Uru, and not just because I like Deep Purple. I think Tolesa is who he is. It might just be the age truest to his nature. It wasn't written with other people, visitors in mind. It was a place that was only for him. It's markedly different from other Denis ages and reminds me a lot more of Catran's and Anna's playful surrealism. Aside from him writing Ahnone as a Taurus age, just for shits and giggles, the design of Tolesa is the strongest evidence for Kadish being a rebel. It breaks with so many conventions. Denis ages overall come in two varieties: practical, like Teledan, Garrison, and Arcana, and pretty, like the various Garden ages. But none of them are so delightfully creative and whimsical as Catran's or Anna's ages, or indeed, as Kadish Tolesa. The surreal feel of Catran's and Anna's work can be explained by them having to experiment, since they learned the intricacies of the art after the fall of Denis, when most of the knowledge was already lost. Kadish had a master rank in the Guild of Writers, which generally means you're a member qualified to teach. But he was nowhere near the leadership. He didn't need to experiment and learn through trial and error. He knew all the rules, all the techniques, and he chose to break them. Kadish Tolesa shows us what he secretly yearned for: beauty, creativity, individuality. Tolesa is his, and it's a reflection of his inner being, his wants and desires that he had to hide in a society that would never accept them. He hid in plain sight, first as a guildmaster churning out ages for his society to exploit, and later as a gallery owner selling art to the wealthy. He hid all the clues in plain sight too, maybe because he was bored and frustrated, or maybe because he was enamored with his own cleverness. Maybe both. But it's clear he chafed against the rigidity of Denis society. On the outside, he was a successful businessman, absolutely raking it in. But on the inside? If you look at the contents of the vault, you'll see piles of gold and precious objects strewn about willy-nilly. It's careless. But the thing is, he was not a careless person, and that shows in his ages. His society told him that he was supposed to care about riches, advancement, but he got himself booted from the Guild of Writers, and he piled his riches in his vault like so much garbage that he didn't know what to do with. Someone who cared about wealth would have his riches organized, lovingly displayed, the coins collected in little bags for easy counting, for example. This is a guy just going through the motions. It was only a matter of time until he cracked. And now we come to this place, the Kadish Gallery. The gallery is what he created as a livelihood after he was kicked out of the guild. Boys gotta eat, after all, and this shows us his greatest strength as a person, his ability to adapt. He took what he had learned about aesthetics during his schooling and applied that knowledge in an entirely new way. And he now, he was his own boss, and nobody got to tell him what to do anymore. And his business absolutely flourished. Here's another point in favor of the Kadish wasn't a greedy asshole theory. After he made an absolute fortune with his gallery, eventually he turned it into a museum with the puzzle solution to his vault age on display. Someone who values their richities doesn't do that kind of thing. Can you imagine Bill Gates putting all of his money, or a big part of it, in a puzzle vault, leaving clues in a public location and be like, hey, if you're clever enough to break in, you deserve to have what's in there? I think he didn't want riches for the sake of having them. He wanted respect, acceptance. He wanted to be appreciated for his abilities, not for selling pretty things to the rich. Well, he wasn't really getting that with the Denis. So what do you do with a society that you don't fit into? Well, you've got two options. Withdraw and cut yourself off, or become an enfant terrible. You start shaking things up for the sake of shaking things up. Igura, the Watcher's Pub, expert level trolling. Another lovely location, another machine that we don't really know where it came from, who built it, who helped him build it, who locked all the materials there, we don't know. This is the hub of Hoodwink, the stage for his biggest audacity. We will never know why he felt like he needed to scam his entire civilization. Was he delusional, arrogant, power-hungry, or did he intend for people to cotton onto his bullshit eventually? I don't think he truly believed himself to be the grower. I don't think he believed in much of anything. And I don't think he lusted for power either, or he would have just stuck with the Guild of Writers. Or he would have used his wealth to directly assert influence, which he didn't. He could have gone down a very dark path and allied himself with radical reactionaries like Aegeris and Viovis. He didn't. He never sought to destroy Denis. I think he meant to show his people a mirror so they could take a long, hard look at their own foolishness. I see the whole scheme as a big fat screw you directed at the guild that refused to see the potential in experimentation and creativity, the wealthy who think themselves above the rest of society, and a society that has calcified and refuses to progress in any meaningful way. Yisha constructs a neat narrative around his bones, but I think there's more to him than a wannabe grower and hoarder of wealth. And I think she saw that too. The alternative vault speaks for itself. There must have been something worth saving. The possible solution to this enigma is in his last letter. He says he is dying, surrounded by all that he loves, and he mentions books. I'll be the first to admit that my Denis is rudimentary at best, but I found a source that has both a translation and a transliteration, and I looked at it, and it is indeed a plural. If you like, I'll share the link to that transcription later on. And it's signed Guildmaster Kadish, even though he was kicked out of that guild. So yeah, dude had a bit of an ego indeed. And this shows us that he probably was still sore about that. But the only book you find in the vault links back to the gallery, and it's stamped with the DRC logo, so it's probably not the original book that was there for Yisha to find when she came to this place way before the DRC ever did. When Aegeris and Viovis set the plague loose in the cavern, they also linked dying people into populated ages stored in the Great Library. It is very possible that Kadish watched them do this, grabbed what books he could, and linked to Talisa with them. The Denis had rolled out the key system shortly before the fall, so he was probably able to warn the people in those ages not to link back in the cavern under any circumstances. But since he came from the cavern, he had no way of knowing if he was infected or not. so he dared not leave the vault. And that might be what Yisha saw, and that might be why she cared to save him. So where is he now? Personally, I like the idea of him still being around. There are so many interesting things that you can do with a story about an actual Denis survivor, someone like Kadish who likes to have the last laugh. Someday I hope we'll get to find out, because it definitely looks like the end of his story has not yet been written. And this is it, folks. This is how you do environmental storytelling. The ages themselves have a voice. Not everything worth knowing or understanding was written down in journals for you to read. So, thank you for listening. Thank you, Nozila, for kicking my butt. Thank you, Minasunda and Nozila both, for organizing and general hand-holding. I appreciate your help and patience very much. And thank you, Andre, for helping me fix the stream. So, if you have questions, or if you want to say something, share your own theories about who Kadish was, please do it in the Twitch stream. It's easier to follow. It's easier for me to follow that. The in-game stream, things get buried too quickly there. So let's see. Caesar, I think you are a great storyteller. Thank you very much. I do try. Imor, Denilab, well done, Oli. Excellent speculation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Okay, do we have... I'm trying to scroll up a bit in the in-game chat. Caesar, yeah, he was right about that, but the mirror needed to be on him as well. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Like, he came up with this whole elaborate bullshit thing that he tried to pull one over the Denis, basically, and he could have spent all that money, all that time. He could have done something to actually help people with that. Like, Denis had slums, Denis had poor people. He could have helped those. That would have been a lot more meaningful than whatever it was that he had going on. Clydie's song, Yisha saved him, so there must have been something she thought was redeemable. Yeah, exactly. Clickety, clickety, clickety. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? What did you feel when you explored those ages? Murray, I think Kadish was a very lonely person. Yeah, yeah, I absolutely get that impression too, yes. More clarification on Arnone. Written, built, constructed, a combination? I have no idea, and I don't think the devs do either. I mean, one of the things that the Denis Guild of Writers had a rule about was writing structures into ages. They did not like that because it led to snafus like Atreus' stone ship age, where he wanted to write a ship into an age and that was just floating in the water, and what ended up happening was that the ship was stuck in the rock. So that was always a possibility. So either Kadish was like an insanely good writer who could pull that off, who could put a complicated working machinery into an age just by writing it, or he had it constructed. He had workers that did the job for him. Korovev, maybe what we see in the vault is just a deception as the rest of the age. Maybe, yes, absolutely. How Imor says, agreed about the writing mechanics. Absurd. But if built or constructed, imagine the number of the new workers necessary. How to maintain their silence. Exactly, that's what. Yes, that occurred to me as well. So I think that he made them sign NDAs, but it's only a question of time until someone talks. And he he would have been an idiot not to see that. And I think we can all agree that he wasn't an idiot. At least not that kind of idiot. I'll look into the Twitch chat for a moment. The great Queen Attain says, hello, welcome back, by the way. And I remember it's pronounced corner. So the endgame of the Grower Grift was to get the Denis to believe him and then rip the mask off to show what idiots they were. Yeah, basically. He just wanted, yeah, absolutely. That's what I think. Caesar, how did Yisha really save Kadish? Did it really happen, or is that part of the story that's really BS? We don't know, do we? But I think Yisha is not a liar, and I don't think she's delusional. I think she really can do these things. What I think is she opened up a new branch in the multiverse, because that's what the art is. It's traveling the multiverse. And so she went back in time, got him out of the vault, and this created a new branch. And this is the branch that we can travel to with the alternate vault. At least, as I said, that's my thing. We just don't know. Tireton. Fun fact, Cyan released the age notes for Kadish to Lisa a few years ago. He had built a refuge for his family in that age. The first clock puzzle is in what is left of the mansion. The second clock puzzle is in what is left of an immaculate garden. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Andre? I'm also guessing he's not singing in the recording that plays in the gallery. Yeah, no, he probably, that's probably not him, no. The composer said that it's supposedly his wife. Caesar, I think he really was an idiot of his own demise. Two wrongs don't really make a right, but I do get his vision and what he really was trying to do. Yeah, yeah. He was really misguided. And Yisha says that he clung to things that don't really matter in the end. That the Denis clung to things that don't really matter. Only, she said, it was his wealth. And I think it wasn't that. But his ego, his gripe with society. And if he had been able to take a step back, he would have seen that he could actually do and change things for a lot of people. But he didn't. He was not able to take that step back. He was completely locked in rich person myopia, like those people out of high school, from really rich families who take a gap year and have to travel to Africa to find poverty. I think it was a bit like that. Tay. I'm gonna call you Tay because I have no idea how to pronounce that. Michael Engberg noted that the power to the doors was cut from inside the gallery. It's likely that when the fall came, he ran to his gallery, cut the power to the doors, so no one else could follow him, and he used the linking book to get to Talisa. Of course, he had to leave the book behind. The DRC would have found that book, explored the age, and made sure that it was safe for explorers, and then placed their stamp on the book. Yeah, possibly. But as I said, in his note, he mentions multiple books. So it would make sense that Yisha took them if they truly did contain ages where Denis survivors lived. I mean, Relishan had to be populated from somewhere. Arte. Arte! Alright. Philip, the great tree is the tree of possibilities. Exactly, yes. That's a symbol for the branching multiverse. Absolutely. Korovev. A favorite wild guess of mine is that the alternate vault is actually the true one. Believing in what she said doesn't guarantee it's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Yisha is not a deity. She's not all-knowing. She's human and she absolutely makes mistakes. Pratt, and my imagination tells me the first vault to be the true one. Yisha couldn't have written the second one without witnessing the first one. She can't change the past, but she can show us there's always an alternative to seemingly dead end storylines. Yeah, but if you consider the multiverse theory, she might have done, as I said, like she found his bones there. Because she can absolutely move through time. Because when you go to the cleft, you see the recordings that she had done like years and years ago. And then you see her in the flesh and she barely aged. She can absolutely go places. But since changing the past doesn't actually change the past in let's call it the prime line, it just opens another branch. And I think that's what she did. That's what the vault is. It's another branch on the multiverse. Korovev, assuming she wrote it, it may just be a second age build exactly like the other. But why would that be? Why would she go through all that trouble? I don't think she's a deceiver. She's no Kadish. She would not bother with nonsense like that. Because the thing is, Yisha doesn't... She's not bothered by what other people think about her. She doesn't care. She cares about the borrow, she cares about the art not being lost, she cares about the art not being misused. But she does absolutely not care about if anyone else believes that she's the grower. She doesn't even call herself the grower. The 3 stories in Mystery that give an indication where some Denise survivors came from. Yeah, absolutely. Korovev, I get that from a Doylist view she's supposed to be right, but from a Watsonian view it's fair to be skeptical of all sources. Yes, sure. Yes, absolutely. But why would she, like, you can absolutely speculate on someone's motivations, like why would she go out of her way to deceive people, to lie to people? She has no reason to. In universe, she has no reason to. Artie, time to go. I'm still watching on Twitch though. Take care everyone, and thanks for the presentation, Owly. Thank you for coming and thank you for listening. Korovev, not she, he, a backup wall. Again, why would he do that? Like, why would he write 2 ages that are the same? I mean, he'd get bored. Uru 348. Kadish's ages. Toys for big boys. Yeah, probably. Probably. Livid Liquid. Doesn't she call herself the grower in Mist 5? In her diaries she does, yes. But when you meet her, she no longer believes that she is. She believes that she failed. Pratt, Doylist, Watsonian. Pratt is a bit puzzled. Well, these things do get convoluted. Doylist is when you look at a book from an outside perspective. And, for example, the Doylist, let's go with Sherlock Holmes here. The Doylist explanation for the Reichenbach Falls is that Doyle was sick of writing Sherlock Holmes. He had started to hate that character and he wanted him dead because he didn't want to write him anymore. The Watsonian perspective in the thing is that the Reichenbach Falls happened because he had hunted the big bad there and they grappled and they fell in. So it's basically in-universe and out-of-universe perspective on the story or a game. Korovev, she does muddle the waters about who was enslaved in Teledan. Yeah, but you see... it wasn't just the Baru. I mean, Myst 5, Escher shows us that the Denis exploited whoever they could exploit. The Baru, book people, it didn't matter. They wrote ages, populated ages, with civilizations on a lower technological level than they were, so they could easily control them, and then they exploited them. That's the big dirty secret of Denis. That it was built on exploitation. And I think Yisha is right to point us at that fact so that we don't fall into that trap of, oh, there's this beautiful bygone civilization, and we'd start admiring the Denis uncritically without ever questioning where it all came from. Arte, look at what Asimlev did. Gladiator-style hunts of the Aratan people for the wealthy in Denis. Yes, exactly. Yes. Philip, oh, you're sharing a brain cell with Artie. Yes. Yeah, there were also ages where they held Roman gladiator type events. The one age in Myst 5, I forget its name. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant. Artie, the age of Asimlev was Rebek, yeah. It's strange that happened twice, isn't it? Like, they go around in circles. And they never learned. Clyde Song. Of course, the Denis are multifaceted. The leadership, the wealthy elites were expressed the worst of the Denis. There would have been a whole large segment of citizens who were very different. Yes, yes. I think the absolute majority of the Denis had no idea that these things were happening. That there were slaves in other ages who were exploited, that there were whole civilizations who were exploited, that they exploited ages for resources. And I think the majority of the Denis never actually got to profit from that. It was all to line the pockets of the wealthy. Kadish song, and in all the exploitation they refused to help people who had real needs. Yeah, yeah. But it's not that all that different in our world either, is it? Like social social programs get cut, so some super rich asshole can buy himself another super yacht. Where's the justice in that? It's the same. It's the same. Let's just hope we don't go the way of the Denis. Yisha said in the Burrow Cave from Teledan, the histories whisper of it. Glekfa took the archer, or the king Azamlev. Even in this age, it may not be the last. Yeah, exactly. Round and round it goes. History doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. Caesar. So what was Kadish's fourth fair supposed to be? The future. It was supposed to be the future. Philip, there are a lot of parallels between Denis and Earth, yes. But that's what stories are, aren't they? I mean, as Terry Pratchett said about his Discworld, it's a world and a mirror of worlds. And it's what I like about the Denis. They are all those faults and all those terrible things and all those beautiful things. It makes it feel real. It's not some ideal society that just suffered a great tragedy. No, it was a flawed society. It was a flawed world, a flawed civilization. And in many ways they did sow the seeds of their own destruction by allowing, and I'm borrowing Yisha here, by allowing themselves to become proud and thinking themselves better than others. Pratt, I think the Denis had a steep difference between the privileged and the others. Yes, yes, they did. Yes. Shiloh O'Brien, there's no ethical consumption under Denis exploitation. Dude! Oh, yes! I want that on a t-shirt. Philip, the Western Roman Empire fell due to pride and corruption. Yeah, and a little Ice Age. a supervolcano destroying the crops 5 years in a row, that would break anything. That would break any civilization. And it wasn't the only civilization that um, disappeared during that time. The same thing happened in China and in South America. Charlo, we now have a t-shirt design for the next Mysterium then. Yes. Oh yes, please. Ah yes, the Romans. You know, it's moments like that when I'm just glad that I didn't go to university to study ancient history for nothing. It does come in handy once in a while. Okay, anyone else? Is there more thoughts? More theories? Kadish Gallery is where we are. Yes, Pothobber. And I love this place. I really love it. Clyde's song. So, on the tree of possibility, there could be branches where the good things that Denis did would be showcased. Yeah, yeah, there are absolutely branches on that tree where they managed to avoid falling, where the good choices were made. Shiloh O'Brien, lovely lecture, Oli. Thank you. Thank you for coming and listening. Prad, me studied physics at university, could explain the mechanical age gears and the cyclic rock voltages. Ha! Yes. You could absolutely do that, you know. I'd come listen. A scientific view on the ages of the Mist universe. That would be that would be amazing actually. Philip, I think that Kadish was trying to teach his people that rigidity is not a good thing. Their rigid legal system led to the fall. Yeah, it was one of the things that led to the fall. You see, as it is with, let's call them radical reactionaries, that's people like religious extremists, like fascists, like Nazis, they can only grow if the society lets them grow. And if they are allowed to grow, it means that people in that society might disagree with their methods, but there's a lot of people that actually agree with their goals. You can see that multiple times through history. Yes, they are outliers, but they are outliers with a support system. And in a society that does not let ideologies like that happen, where children are taught to be kind to others, where children are taught that nobody on this planet is superior to anyone else, ideologies like that don't spring up, because they get laughed out the door. These are that usually their choice to believe in those beliefs. Yeah, and you see, a lot of time people who fall in with those crowds are the lost ones, the forgotten ones, those that who aren't accepted, who are ostracized for some reason. And that's when religious extremists get their hooks in. That's when fascists get their hooks in. If you're disenfranchised, if you don't know who to turn to, they get their hooks in. But if you have a society where people take care of each other, and where people support each other unconditionally, they can't get their hooks in. Like the Denis had their own beliefs. Oh yeah, and they're really interesting too. Caesar. He was definitely a gifted writer and was to make parallel universe, to make the same land but in different spheres. He has a wonderful mind about writing ages. Yes, he has quite the imagination. And you know, this is usually what hoarders of wealth, those people who become dragons sitting on their hoard, is what they don't have. They don't have imaginations. Otherwise, they would do something with all their wealth instead of, just sitting on it. Artie, the depth of the backstory to you is what sets it apart from any other game. The history, the language, and the lore. It is what has kept me around for 30 years. Same, absolutely same, yes. You're not alone there. That's why I love it too. It's so rich and so vibrant, and there's so much of it, and I love every single bit. Etain, Myst, Uru is the Lord of the Rings of computer games. Pretty much, yes, pretty much. I'd agree with that assessment. Artie, the most dangerous people are those who have nothing left to lose. That is very true. Very true. Shiloh, if you make peaceful revolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. Yes, yes. Or to quote Rosa Luxemburg, eventually there will be a decision to be made. You have to decide, is it socialism or barbarism? Yeah. Philip, this game is very unique. There are no other games like it. That's very true. Many have tried, and none have succeeded. Like, there are so many Myst clones out there. I remember them from back in the day, when everyone tried to get on the gravy train, but there can be no other. Nobody else. They saw the the graphics and they saw the art style and they saw the puzzles and they tried to ape that without understanding the core of it. Where is everybody? Well, I see quite the crowd here, actually. We're in the Kadish gallery. Kadish song. I think what has happened in Mulla is that people created a real community. Yes, yes, and it's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty. It's very special. I know I'm rarely ever here, and I shall be crawling back under my rock when I'm done, but I do appreciate all of you very much. Livid liquid. So much that nobody else had the magic, and they all thought the window dressing was the structural foundation. Yep. Well put, well put. Damper. Thank you very much, Auli. Lovely speech, and I'm going to the library in case someone is there for the next event. Thank you for coming round. I shall be joining you later. Sky is blue, very true, Arash. I think that is how we all feel, like citizens of Mula. Yeah, we're our own little country here. And we do have our kerfuffles and our drama, and we don't always see eye to eye, but when something tragic happens, like if one of the beloved members passes away, everybody just puts aside their grievances and is there for each other, and that is something quite special. Quite special. Uru, could it be that Kadish wanted to say certain things but didn't know how to say them appropriately? Quite possibly. Yeah. Or he had trouble getting people to listen to him. Philip, I have always thought that the Myst series, including Mulla, is more than a game. Yeah, it definitely is. It's a whole new universe. Okay, so I don't want to encroach on the next beautiful event, and I definitely want to get my butt over there. So I think we better wrap it up now. I thank you all for coming and listening and talking to me, sharing all your thoughts and your theories. It was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, and good night.